Hello, Internet. We're back once again with a special guest on today's show. It should be a fun one. We'll jump into it in just a second here. As usual, I have to run around and retweet things first. So maybe you can give me some tips on that once we get into the show.
I don't know how you don't use TweetDeck.
You don't use TweetDeck?
Blows me away.
I do now.
Oh, you do now?
I had to. Because once I started doing all the DNVR accounts too, I had to use it.
Yeah. Well, because you mentioned it the other day where you're like, I don't know how to use it. And I was like, wait, what? Because there are certain reporters in Avalanche media who still use the website to do their Twitter stuff. And it always makes me laugh when I walk by and it's pulled up on their laptop, like the actual website. And I'm just like,
I still use it for my account tweeting most of the time, but I can't.
I only use it for GIFs.
I use it for that. I guess, just the other day, Twitter added scheduling tweets finally on their own website. So that has helped a lot. But anyway, you both know
tweets for the common folk.
Yeah, there you go. You both know the Wilhelm scream, correct?
Scream?
That it's
maybe?
The very famous uncopyrighted scream that's in every movie that goes like, "Wah!"
Oh,
okay, yeah.
All right,
yes.
See, that's the noise that I make when I cut myself shaving before I knew about Manscaped. So, but now that problem is solved for me because of the Lawnmower 3.0, Manscaped's new beautifully designed trimmer to reduce any of those painful nicks and tugs. It comes as part of their perfect 3.0 package, including some anti-chafe deodorant and spray-on toner to keep everything fresh, both below and above the belt. And it even comes in an amazing carrying case. So order your Manscaped products today, and you can get 20% off plus free shipping from manscaped.com when you use code DNVR20 at checkout. Welcome in to the DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by Davidson's Beer, Wine, and Spirits, my go-to place for my Breckenridge brewery as I'm wearing the shirt here today. I'm Nathan Rudolph. Joining me as always is AJ Hafley, but we also have a special guest on the show today, former Avs social media person, Emily Wade. Emily, thank you for coming on, and if you want to introduce yourself far better than I just did, feel free to.
No, that's pretty good. Happy to be here. Kind of,
all right.
Virtually.
Yeah, as close as we can get these days, right? Either way, excited for the show, excited to kind of dive into the social media side of the NHL experience and all of that. So I guess for starters, how did you get your start with the Avalanche and social media networking in general?
I applied for a social media internship in college. I went to Kansas, so Kansas athletics obviously a big deal.
Oh, so that's why AJ likes you. I see. Okay, it all makes sense now.
But it was the first time they had a social media intern. They were just kind of starting up their accounts, and I just applied because I needed to do an internship. And then I just thought it was awesome and kept going, kept getting more responsibility. And then so I was doing Kansas basketball, KU Hoops at KU Hoops, and I applied for the Nuggets job. Yeah, there you go. Shout out. I applied for the Nuggets job, actually, so it was an easy transition in my mind from Kansas basketball to the Denver Nuggets. In no slam towards the Nuggets, just in the sense of, like, Kansas was huge. And so I think that I was convincing enough, got the Denver Nuggets job, and I showed up, and they were like, hey, also, you get the Avalanche. And I was like, sounds great. And then they were like, also, you get the Mammoth. And I was like, uh-oh, it's getting intense. But so I did Nuggets, Avalanche, Mammoth for 2 years. Maybe 3. And then obviously social media grew a ton. And so then I just went all Avs, and we built out the Nugget side, hired into the Mammoth side beneath me. And now it's a huge department that's really functioning like crazy in comparison to the fact that it was like 6 of us when I started 6 years ago.
How has it, from your perspective, what were some of the main differences from when you started to today?
Everything. Pretty much. Like, people didn't post every day when I started. That was the first thing I did. I was like, great, the Nuggets are posting every day on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. To think that that's like wasn't a thing before is crazy to me. To think that people still don't post on their brand pages every day is crazy. But it went kind of from like, what do we already have that we need to tell people about, to like, what can we create to give additional value to people, which was cool to be in the process of that, and especially because the Nuggets and Avs, that we were the same department, same company, like totally different voices, different content, different fans. So it's pretty cool to do both and sort of see something would be like super popular on the Nuggets, and we'd be like, let's do it on the Avs, and then people would be like, we don't care at all, like, thanks though. So I think the fact that we just became content creators instead of kind of just distributing content, it wasn't really like, oh, we need to, you know, break a trade. You're like, yeah, sure, we post about the trades, but then also what value can we give you by being around the team, around the players, around the fans? I think that's also what differentiates a team account from like a reporter account, would be the behind the scenes aspects that you're allowed to have.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to me that, you know, even a decade, 15 years ago, the only pictures people saw of hockey players were in the newspaper, basically. And now you can share that information within 5 minutes if they take a picture down at warm-ups, and then it's on the internet. So it's super cool how fast it happens now. Yeah,
everything. Well, it's kind of a race sometimes, right, to see who can post it first. But I always think teams have the advantage of larger audiences, so I think teams go for quality over timeliness, and I think that pays off. And then it kind of makes it a balance too, right? Some reporters are quicker, and that's their shtick. But teams, you know, you're going to get a really cool graphic, or you're going to get a cool video or something, like in addition to just the news.
You're not going to get like this grainy ass picture where like lighting wasn't considered, and you're like, where were you when this was taken? Did you zoom all the way in? Like what?
No, that blob's Nathan McKinnon. Trust me, it is.
I swear, it's really shady, but I swear it's him.
I just remember we were sitting at Pepsi Center one day, Cale Makar's first day.
Oh my!
And
gosh.
Like,
starting.
Cale Makar's first game, his first time getting on the ice, and AD had walked all the way around to the tunnel, and was like, pictures, and you were just sitting there just laughing, and it was
zoom on my huge camera.
Yeah, and you're like, okay, just waiting for it, and it was so funny because he got on the ice and like 5 of us ripped off really grainy pictures that all looked identical, and we're like, we promise this is Cale Makar, and you're like, click. And it's like zoomed in, and like you can see like the rosy cheeks, and
dude, there's Makar. Great tweet.
Yeah,
it was in the can for a couple of months waiting on that one.
Nice.
It was pretty interesting.
To say
there were a lot of like little moments like that over time where like I would see you would like post a picture, and I would be like, oh, like I was standing right there. Like this is cool to see what the actual picture looked like, because you'll just because I see you take the pictures, but I don't always see the actual picture.
Yeah, well, I was taking 10,000 and post 4, so
right. And well, because it's like you're walking around just taking so many of them, and like I would say that was one of the other things that I thought was interesting was the progression of the camera over the years. Mm-hmm. Like, it started out like on your phone a lot, and you're always looking down at the phone, and then this huge camera suddenly started going around everywhere.
Yep, and then it was like, oh crap, we need better content. Guess I'll learn how to take photos. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah, they used to, if you look like really far back on Av's Instagram, like there was always something interesting about the photo that was like depth-wise, so that you couldn't tell it was taken on a phone. Like it's really funny to look back. So I'm like, oh, this was on my iPhone 6. And, like now I couldn't imagine posting an iPhone photo to a brand Instagram page at this point.
Yeah, it was always entertaining from where I sat, just to like see the progression over time, and like see what things like you guys were like, oh, we've got to post this, and then like we would post something and it would be like, was this worth it? Was this worth like the big race? Because,
true. I think we all stopped racing kind of at some point. It was like everyone post different things.
It felt like, okay, well, like Ryan's gonna post like a 30-second video of Philip Grubauer in net, and then like you're gonna take an up close picture of somebody doing something, and then AD would take a picture, and I'm just like, why am I here? Like this, you know, and it was I've always found that interesting, like the different perspectives that were sort of clashing, and how we sort of were doing some of the same things, but not even really at all.
No, I think that's why it works. That's why people follow the team and reporters, right? They're getting different stuff from everyone.
Yeah, and then we would get into the locker room, and it was always different. Because like the number of times that I've done interviews, and you're like 13 feet tall. And so like I'm super short, and so I always felt like there was like hovering. Where I could like feel your presence like lurking like Godzilla in the background, where I was just like, and then you'd just be standing there, and then you would end up taking pictures, and I would go on Twitter an hour later, 2 hours later, and there'd be a picture, Ian Cole, the toothy smile, and like I would see like my phone turned upside down, because that's how I record, is I turn it upside down.
Yeah.
And because I don't like when people have their phones like on and the screen pops up when something's being recorded. So I just a habit I started a couple years ago, but like it always made me laugh. Like you would have like these pictures, and like that was like what you would post. You like it was cool to see the way that like we bounced the two jobs bounced off each other like that, where we would go and interview, and then you would be like, okay, well, I'll just take pictures of the players doing interviows. You didn't actually have to do the interview.
Yeah, I was like, I hope they interview him today, so I need a photo, and they wouldn't be like, well, too late.
And like you didn't have to deal with any of the scrums.
Nope.
Like because you were just nope, don't
or
need
I
that.
Zoom on. I just stand really far away and zoom in on it.
Yeah, well, and like again, 13 feet tall, so you can just be like, just right like high angle going down, like easy peasy.
Also, the good angles,
Yeah.
That must be an advantage. Of the few times I've actually been in the locker room, more than once I've seen someone bust out a stool to make sure they can get up and take the right picture, or be able to talk to someone like Miko, who's a giant himself. So
the playoffs, when all of the TV stations show up that aren't there for the regular season, and these dudes literally go running down the hallway with the stools. And then they like set up shop, and then they're like elbowing people out of the way. And you're just like, I don't need to talk to any of these people that they're interested in anymore.
Yeah, I'm always like, can we get that footage from altitude? Thanks. I'm not getting that.
There have been times where like I will use those altitude interviews for quotes, because I'm like, okay, well, they're talking to that guy, and
yeah,
I don't have to anymore, because I know that those are going to get recorded, and I'm on my way.
Yep.
Go get some other info. There you go. Is that the key to doing it?
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Conversations.
All right. You gotta learn how the game's played a little bit.
All right. Well, we can take our first period break there, as right now Colorado is learning how the game is played when it comes to sports books. And DraftKings Sportsbook is the #1 sportsbook app here in Colorado, with golf returning just last weekend. That's another sport you can now bet on. Between that, the KBO, UFC, and look, hockey and basketball are kind of right around the corner again now. So lots of sports coming back, lots of action to get in on and get some skin in the game. DraftKings Sportsbook is secure and reliable betting app, so you can deposit and withdraw your funds at your convenience and do whatever you want. As far as the betting goes, their odds boosts are super awesome, so be sure to download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code DNVR when you sign up. For a limited time, new users get up to $1,000 matched by DraftKings Sportsbook. Use that code DNVR. Again, must be 21 or older, Colorado only. Bonus comprised of a first deposit bonus and a first bet match, each up to $500. Deposit requires 25x playthrough. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700. We also have, if you're looking to learn and smarten yourself up a little bit, MSU Denver Online as a great different option for going back to college if you're returning, or for new students as well. MSU Denver Online puts a dynamic education at your fingertips without forcing you to decide between earning a degree and living your life. MSU Denver is the Colorado institution providing rigorous and affordable online programs taught by professors who bring the real world into the classroom. With over 40 different degree programs and 750 different classes, be it online or in the classroom, as things are starting to open back up again, you can find your way to earn a degree. All right, second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. We're here with Emily Wade, the former Avs social media person. What is the most interesting content you've had to create for social media? I'm very curious here because we've seen crazy things from Altitude where they like have all the players try and tie a tie with their arms stretched out and things like that. But I don't know how much of that is on the video production side versus social media.
Most interesting. I think, the sort of like out of left field stuff that's never been done before. The first Key Bank Trivia Sweden flyaway game that we did that year before we played in Sweden with Gabe and Tyson, Barry, and Eric Johnson was one of those things that we were like, we've never done this. We honestly were like, we're not really sure how it's going to go, but we're going to take a stab at it because it sounded really fun. And it was obviously a partner with KeyBank and it was promoting Sweden. So it was like, okay, like, let's just do it. And it took, I don't think I slept for like a week beforehand just trying to prepare everything because I of course, was like, oh, sure, I'll make it all. Like, I'll make all these trivia questions. Like, terrible decision on my part. But then it was all filmed in an hour. So it felt like I prepared for so long. And then it's just like, and then most of the stuff that was good, I didn't even plan for. They were all just really good at it. So I was like, why was I even wasting my time preparing for this? And then the follow-up being the match game the year after, which that was funny too, because we cheated and they didn't know we cheated. Obviously they found out later, unfortunately, but that was funny because that took a lot of preparation too. And cheating prep, it was I had to secretly figure out how to cheat without everyone else knowing. And somehow because if more people knew, it wouldn't be as funny, right? We tried to keep it pretty genuine. So it was conspiring with Ryan Graves and Mark Barbero to cheat at this match game that we were doing. But I think both of those were really fun. They were hard to produce, took a lot of time, and our video editors did an awesome job doing it. They did all the hard work afterwards. But then I just think it was interesting because it was just here, to let your personalities show. I couldn't plan for personality. You just put them in situations where they can be fun and let them be fun and record it and then post about it.
How much, I know from my perspective what it was like being in the locker room as they continually got better. But how much easier was it to do that? To just be like, hey, let your personality show as the team was experiencing more success and guys were happier to be at the rink?
Yeah, everything is easier when the team is winning, no matter what. The only thing not easier is responding to fans because there are more people responding to you all the time. Your response load definitely increases, probably peaked in the beating Calgary, even just that night. I think we were logged in until 3 or 4 a.m. just because so many people were still so pumped about it. And then the next morning starting all over. I think it's way easier to do fun things and let them be fun when they won't be perceived as goofing off when they should be working hard, which I think is a very unfair thing that fans assume. I think it's unfair to assume if they're making a funny video at 2 p.m. on a Thursday when there's a game on Saturday, that doesn't mean they're not focused on the game. That doesn't mean they didn't have a really hard practice beforehand. It's they can balance working really hard. They get all their work done. If they're about to leave the rink and then they have fun on camera, that doesn't affect the game at all. But I do think people think when you're bad and then you post a funny video, they're like, this is why you're bad. And it's that's totally irrelevant. But once you're good, they never think you should be practicing instead. Everyone's just this is amazing. You guys are the best team ever. And that's just unfair to the players. They're always focused on the game, even if they're bad games. Doesn't mean they were not focused.
So as the person who kind of has to see, you get all of the craziness. I know what it's like for me after games, after every loss, where it's just this is going to be at least 2 hours of sifting through some of the madness. Yeah. For you, how long did it take you to kind of steel yourself against, the Avs would lose 5-0 one night, and then the next morning it would come back and they'd be oh, they didn't here's JT Confer having fun at practice, and you would get 4 people who would reply and be
why isn't Jared Bednar fired yet?
Yeah, why aren't they back skating? How long did it take you to kind of steel yourself against just that fan's instinct to just be mad when they lose?
The 48-point season steeled me up real quick. That was the perfect cure for taking anything personally at all whatsoever, because that was brutal. But I just think you just kind of have to laugh at it. And then also you just kind of get to know fans who are that way.
Mhm.
Or if you don't recognize their name at all, I'm like, thank you, random St. Louis Blues fan, for hopping in our mentions at 8 a.m. Like, we don't care.
Yeah.
And honestly, Avs fans, I think, I obviously don't have a ton of experience with other teams, but based on like who I follow and seeing other teams' interactions, Avs fans are genuinely really positive and
Mhm.
nice. Despite losses, I think a lot too in the Avs community, they kind of self-regulate. Like half the time, we don't have to say anything to a stupid response. Like other people jump in and they're like, wow, like, what do you mean? Like, it's like, it kind of self-regulates, which is cool. I obviously just want to be like, ignore them. Who cares? Like, doesn't matter at all.
Mhm.
But it's just so much easier once you start responding to positive fans. The positivity just grows way faster. Even when you're not doing well, there's still so much positivity that it makes it easier, because when you're sifting through all these hate tweets, you still get the ones that are like, thanks for responding to me, or like, oh, love this photo of Tyson Jost, and you're like, okay, so we're good. Like, everything isn't doom and gloom at 1 a.m. after a loss.
How much
Also,
do you have to
glasses of
resist? Like how much do you have to resist? Like the really like you're having a bad day. They've lost 3 in a row, and like you get that guy in the mentions who's like, trade Tyson Jost. Like, how much do you have to like resist the sarcastic tweet where you're like, sure, St. Louis Blues fan 1, 2, 3, 4. I will definitely run upstairs and tell Joe Sakic what he needs to do to fix the team.
Yeah. We found the cure would be like screenshotting them and sending them to each other within our social team with funny responses, because then you feel satisfied because someone like laughs with you, but you're not responding to them. I mean, I would never respond to anything like that anyway, but it is sometimes like I'll be like, okay, I have to send this to everyone I know and just respond to them and then get a laugh out of it. Or like all the group we travel with, I feel like I was always in the group chat like sending really dumb tweets to them to be like, check out what this guy said. Just keep it within.
Excellent.
Keep it internal.
Yep. Don't need to make that public for sure.
I'm very anti-trolling fans for retweets. I think that's a little bit controversial, which is weird. But I just think like, yeah, you get a ton of retweets when you totally slam dunk on a dude. But like, is it really worth it to be the brand that's just like making fun of people?
Yeah.
No,
Makes
especially the Avs. The Avs are not making fun of people.
Avs aren't going to pull any Windies out here.
No,
not gonna
Wendy's
happen.
is funny.
So the Ryan Graves thing from this last year.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm glad you brought it up and not me.
Yeah, well, I'm just curious.
We're friends. We
Like,
know each other when it. It.
I was miffed at first,
Yeah.
and then I was like, okay, this is kind of funny.
Yeah, I think it was funny. A couple people like I actually was like, why do people take this wrongly? Because I think your tweet also could be interpreted a bunch of ways. But I think from the team, like, you know, like I could see the people who were like dramatically over here, and I saw the people who were like, not, you were wrong. Like I was like, yeah, I see it both ways, whatever. Like you can interpret words however you want to interpret them in your head.
Right. Like for the record, I
know.
I never said the dude was late. Like,
yeah. But then you could see how the way
it was implied,
read, right?
Like it
yeah,
totally
it was
like, and it wasn't meant that way. And like, I ended up talking to Ryan the next day, and it was just a thing. And then like that night, it was like the next game, the Instagram post of the gravy train always arrives on time, and I was like,
which is funny, arbitrarily without the
like
context, but right, no context. It's just like a funny caption. I think though, in general, like that sort of thing, I think it's cool when teams kind of like stand up for their players. Like obviously I really didn't think it was like, I didn't think people were judging Ryan Graves at all for your tweet by any means, but it's just like this sort of like, we're all on this one team. Like, you know, it's like a way to like, the people who took it negatively, I was actually bummed, because I think you could look at it and be like, that's a funny way to sort of like, here's the saga, it ended, whatever. Right?
Like come full circle.
Like, right, like it's fun. And I think, and I was glad obviously that it was like that you got there too, because I think it was like, we acknowledge this happened, but we're not saying it was right or wrong. It's just saying like, we support Ryan Graves, who is on time right now, because it's like a little photo of him arriving, right? I think there was like another time too, we were in Toronto, and I want to say we were on a losing streak because I posted an Instagram photo and the team was like doing that football celebration thing, you know, where they pretend to take a photo of the defense anymore. That was Instagram, and it was fun. And somebody commented and they were like, why are they messing around? Like, you're on a 5-game losing streak or whatever. Like, you should be practicing. And I like responded back, and it was just like, they practiced really hard and had some fun at the end. Like, calm down. Everything can be in jest, right? You can do stuff just for fun. And I think Yeah, I mean, that was like up for interpretation, obviously, however people took your tweet, however people took the Instagram. But I thought it was fun. Like at the end, like it was like a nice, like, okay, we didn't need to keep talking about it after that. Like it was like, haha, okay, stop. Like no more comments on the matter, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's how you took it, but you had spoken to him previously from that Instagram too.
Oh yeah, like we had talked about it,
Yeah.
and when it went up, and I was just like,
yeah,
I was like, all right, that's well played. And then,
I know,
I was
it's one of those things that you're like, I couldn't even be mad because it's clever, and then it's fine.
well, and I was like, okay, like if this had happened to AD, I would find this hilarious. So I was like,
yeah.
I was like, all right, you got to laugh at yourself on this one. Like, and I'd already like done the tour.
Yeah, and separating the Instagram from the Twitter, I think helps because then some people were like, we have no idea even what you're talking about. We love this photo of Ryan Graves.
Yeah,
like it wasn't as like quote tweet here he is, like that would have been way too aggressive, like not funny at all.
That would have felt way personal.
Yeah, that's like that's inappropriate. That's too far. Whereas this is more like it's also kind of clever, right? Because people kind of like inside jokes. Like that's one of the things I think Avs social media has that's unique. Is like the people who knew what the caption was talking about were kind of like, yeah, and then the people who don't are just like, cool, photo of Ryan Graves.
Like, hey, Ryan Graves is tall and good looking, and there he is on time.
Like it didn't take anything away from the photo; it only added to this sort of like uproar, which is dramatic too. It wasn't even a big deal. You squashed it, and then the Insta I thought was like, haha, we all acknowledge it, and then we never really talked about it.
It was like 48 hours of all of Nova Scotia dunking on me.
And then it was fine.
Well, and like I told Ryan that, he was like, "You're still getting a lot of tweets," and I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "Oh," and I was like,
"Oh,"
because it sort of seemed like he was like, "Oh, I didn't mean for it to continue on."
Yeah,
because like he and I talked about it, and we had the conversation and all, and I just thought the whole thing was capped off by Ian Cole advertising his watches, in which I was like, "Okay." Again,
Breitling.
So very entertaining.
We've learned here.
Watch. Come on, man.
There you go. I think we've learned that to work in social media, you have to be made of rubber, so the words bounce off. So Denver Rubber Company is the most reliable local partner for your long-term projects. And Denver Rubber Company is an essential business that has filled so many needs for several industries, including military, defense, government, wind energy, even food and beverage during these difficult times. These guys have been around since 1972 and are the absolute best at what they do, whether it be rubber snowplow blades, custom rubber hoses, foam gaskets, metal parts, you name it. If you're working on any type of project, big or small, they can create something for you. So give them a visit at drcfirst.com/DNVR or call to see if you can get something from them at 1-800-259-0010. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcasts presented by Davidson's with Rudo, AJ, and Emily. As we kind of move forward through the Avs years, obviously the 48 season, I imagine, was a pretty hard set into the Avalanche world. But what are some of the best moments from the following seasons when they made the playoffs and things like that?
Definitely Cale Makar's first NHL goal. I feel like everyone says that, but just because it was like so unbelievable.
Hard to argue against that one, yeah.
I remember I was tearing up because I was just because obviously I was at his draft, and so I was like, oh my, I felt personal pride, which is so dumb, but I was just like, oh my gosh, this is the craziest thing to ever happen, which I do think everyone could feel that. So I was it's not just me, but it was just one of those surreal moments that when does that that'll never happen again, probably. Who's gonna do that after all of the build up too? It was just, that was crazy. Making the playoffs game 82 against the Blues also. I just think emotional things. That for sure was, I don't think, obviously we were prepared either way for when we're in, lose, we're not in, but was not prepared for how crazy it was. There was no way we could have prepared for just the dog pile, just this sheer, sheer emotion that actually ended up coming out was just unbelievable and so cool that it was funny because I was wow, we prepared, and then probably did nothing that we prepared. Honestly, I think it was just more okay, this is how we're reacting now, because you couldn't just be yay, we're in. That wasn't the moment. It was such a bigger moment.
How much of that is there? How much content never sees the light of day just because it didn't line up with everything that happened?
the best piece of content that we never got to post was if Nathan McKinnon had won the Hart Trophy. Our graphic designer, I just thought of this. I'm so bitter about this every day. But our graphic design team made this graphic. I should ask if they can post it someday, just in the future. Well, I guess maybe if he ever wins the Hart, they should use it. But it just was it looked like a newspaper, like an old school newspaper headline, and it had Joe, who won the Hart. I'm not gonna remember who it is, but it had our last 2 Hart winners in their celebrations, and it faded into McKinnon's cover, and it was literally the coolest graphic I had ever seen. And the worst part about him not winning, let alone that I thought he deserved it, but I just sat there and I was like,
it would have been so cool.
Yeah, our graphic design team kills it. They spent a week on this graphic, and it was just
brutal. Now it just gets to sit there and collect dust.
I know. I'm guys, post it one day. Just be if I actually always thought, I was I wonder if we could do a cutting room floor. What is it called? Something that of things we never got to post. That would be number 1 on my list. I just don't know. Is that rude to do?
Be a what if kind of situation. Where you're hey, in an alternate universe, especially during quarantine, that would have been great.
Would have been great content. Beating the Sharks would have been cool. We started that cool, the Calgary Flames froze over when we beat them. We were going to keep going with that sort of thing for that playoff run. All of that stuff would have been cool. Posted. I think the hardest part is when you have a popular player that you're afraid of getting traded, is that you're gosh, if I sit on this content of this guy and he gets traded, I'm never going to be able to use it again. But also you kind of want to hold on to it for that perfect moment.
Yeah.
So thankfully that didn't happen. I don't know that really happened, but it was always about Tyson Berry was a hard person to cut out a lot of stuff for the rest of the summer, just because he was in a lot of videos. But I do think it's always funny because you're do I sit on this and just wait for the perfect moment, or do I use it right now? Because I know, do I wait for, it's so hard. There was one of Miko winking at the camera saying "Go Abs" that was I was this is the this is the go-to, and then he'd keep getting injured. I'd be well, we can't use it while he's injured. We're going to keep sitting on it. So maybe they'll use that one.
There we go.
Turn. I don't think that's pretty much the Nathan McKinnon Hart stuff would have been really, really cool. Or any of the awards that year would have been cool for that matter. But, it was a great trip to Vegas regardless.
It was a fun trip to Vegas to do absolutely nothing.
There was a couple cool photos of Nathan McKinnon on the red carpet. I was okay, great, that's what I get, I guess. It would have been cool for Cale Makar to make the All-Star game this year. That was going to be a great bit of content that would have given us, NHL would have had a ton of content with him too. That was just kind of a bummer to not get to take him to All-Star weekend his rookie year and, do that experience. Although getting Landeskog, Rantanen, and McKinnon all there the year before was pretty sweet.
Even if McKinnon didn't get to play.
He was there though.
He got to physically wander around, and then
he got to put on a sock with Miko's face and Gabe's face on it. That was worth it alone.
It was great watching him coach too, because he was
a great coach.
I don't think anyone told him to do his job as the coach.
Probably, actually. Gabe.
I asked him about that one time, and he was like, he's like, I'm never coaching anything ever again.
Only All-Star games from here on out.
Yeah. So you mentioned players getting traded. For you, I know what the deadline is for us, where I'm a neurotic mess. Where the Avs make a trade, at the deadline this year at 6:45 in the morning, and I'd just gone to bed, and it was come on. What was it like from your perspective? These guys could get dealt, you've spent time around them. There's obviously a different relationship. I know how much it sucked when Ginla got traded, and I loved spending time around him, and then it was just gone.
Yeah. Yeah, people ask that a lot. I think mainly personally, whatever, the coworkers, I suppose, but you're always don't take the good content, people. I'm don't. I'm I'm like, I have my go-tos, like, don't trade him, please. But so then that would always happen, right? Like, that even happened, like, the first time I say, like, Pickard in the expansion draft. Like, I was like,
Yeah.
Like, we were like, yeah, it made sense, whatever. Like, hockey-wise, I'm like, okay, whatever, do what you got to do. But I was just like, no, like, he does our stuff all the time. But then I feel like every time that happens, you get someone else who proves to be really good at content. So I'm trying to think of who that year. Who we got after that I was like, oh, Yakupov. Like, he came in and was like this content machine for like the first 3 months of the season. So it always works out. Like, I think I learned where you're like, okay, yeah, it's a bummer when somebody who's really fun and fans love gets traded. But then like always someone either steps up or the guy who's coming in has like this whole new perspective. Like Belly this year like comes in and has this like wild energy. Like I would have never expected to be like, oh, he's one of our go-to guys for something you need after the Tyson Berry trade, like, or like, I don't know. People always come in and replace the personality, which is good. But it is weird, right? I mean, I thought it's like weird for me, and I hardly see them. I can't imagine like being around them in the actual locker room, preparing for games, and then being like, oh, the guy next to me in the stall is gone.
Right, and it's like, oh, hey, it's just a random new guy. Hi, new guy.
Yeah,
it was. I know. I took the Barry trade personally because Barry and Kerfoot were two of the guys that I talked to like the most consistently. And then they were both just gone. Blow. And I'm like, come on.
That one was only brutal because it was like post, like I thought we were done for the day. I was like, oh, did it close? Like, cool. I was like leaving my desk. And then I was like, oh no, like, no.
Like we had the presser. We talked to Joe. We had the phone call. We were on the phone with Joe. And then it was like 90 minutes later, I'm texting people trying to confirm this trade. And they're like, yep, it's done. And I'm like, what in the...
I know. That was wild. That was a brutal day in mentions. I think I tweeted after that something where I was like, I need a glass of wine. Like, just if I was like, the mentions right now, like, but hey, that worked out. So that's what I always say. I'm like, whatever. Personally, I'm like, they'll do the best hockey thing there is, and we'll just figure it out.
So, the relationship with the Hurricanes.
Okay. I, to be fair, had no idea who was running at Canes when this happened. Like, genuinely, we were strangers tweeting weird things at each other. I knew the guy who used to do it, and I know who does it now. Still a mystery as to who we became best friends with.
Amazing.
Which is weird.
I mean,
right?
just I guess my only question is why? Like,
I
just
don't
because?
Know. The Canes fan base is very similar to Avs, I think, in the sense of they are pretty positive. They like latch on to the storyline aspect. The Canes are so good at taking advantage of stories, right? Like even if they're not that good at hockey, they have an emergency backup goaltender come in and win in Toronto, and they ride it for a month, and everyone's obsessed with it, which is great. I think that's awesome. But I think that we were similar in our approach to social, of behind the scenes, of like being like, here's these big storylines, like here's all these things you can all latch onto. So I think, and being East-West, I think it made it easy where there was like all these Avs fans who kind of liked the Canes, and all these Canes fans who like kind of like the Avs. So it's just like merging. I don't even remember how it started. I don't remember the first tweet about being best friends, but it just exploded.
I don't remember it. And then it was just like Colorado and Carolina are just homies now. And like the fan bases, like you said, they sort of merged.
Yep.
Because then it was all of a sudden like I was seeing a bunch of crossover, like a bunch of Canes fans were in my mentions after games. Like, they did McKinnon rocks. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, sure.
Totally.
Yeah, I genuinely don't remember how that started. There must have been one thing that started it, but I don't even. It was like 2 years ago. I don't even remember.
It was just one of those like little things that just happened, and now it's just like part of it.
It's just a thing now.
Abs, yep. That's Avs social media. People like explain it, and I'm like, well, there's this one tweet. There was one Tyson Tuesday 4 years ago, and here we are now. I don't know how it happened.
That's the best content. Yeah, it takes on a life of its own.
It does. Can't stop the Tyson Tuesday train.
I literally was looking at it yesterday and was like, oh, this is still a thing. Because I don't like regularly follow the Avs Instagram just because I'm old and like I shouldn't be on Instagram at all. Like at some point you just got to be like, enough is enough with the social medias. And Instagram's like my line where I'm like, okay, this is the last one.
Yeah.
But I saw it yesterday and was like, oh, boy, that's
Still
been
a
going
thing.
on for a long time. And like knowing we were talking to you today and thinking about it and being like,
That
yeah,
was
that had
the
to be her
first-
thing. No.
Yeah, first inside joke I would say ever created was just I think it was just because it was like it's June, I don't know, like we didn't make the playoffs.
We have pictures of
Here's-
Tyson's. Here we go.
I'm like, yeah, what if we only had one when it started and then we drafted
Right.
Tyson and I was like, can't stop it now. Now we have the only 2 Tysons. Here we go. And
Well, then
Maple Leafs did it like two times. They humored us.
oh, that's nice
But
of
they
them.
don't do it anymore. I know. Actually, I thought it was really nice. I was like, oh, didn't expect that. Thank you.
So, getting into something just a little more serious, from y'all's perspective, we've seen organizations have been tackling, how to make statements with Black Lives Matter, and the Pride Nights were always kind of a lightning rod of conversation.
Mm-hmm.
How did you guys approach that? Like you and I guess the social media team, how did you guys sit down to try and craft, hey, this is what we should say? How involved were you in making that message? And like what all goes into that?
We aren't drafting statements. Thankfully, we have PR for that, so that it's appropriate and what should be said, because there are a lot of things. I felt like very confident in voicing opinions and the feeling and emotion of moments that happened, like in-game, pre-game, stuff like that. I felt very confident that I could portray that accurately. I think that PR sort of things totally out of all of our wheelhouses in digital, like our entire department. I don't know anyone who could really craft a message that would make everyone happy. So I was very thankful always that there was someone else doing that. But I think because you can only control what you control on social media, right? Like you can only tweet what you're allowed to tweet or what you're given to tweet on some matters. But I think the best thing you can do as a manager is to cultivate within what you can cultivate, right? Like you're responding to fans, you're including fans, you're not being rude and exclusive. Like the only way that we could really handle any of this was by trying to make the Twitter account pro Pride or inclusive to all, or like things like that. We can't control the message that's being sent, like as we shouldn't be, and as I'm glad we're not, but you can control how you treat all of your followers. And I think it is like kind of a reward system where like when you're rewarded with a like that's not really what it feels like when you're doing it, but it's like, is that sort of like, hey, we noticed the Avs are interacting with accounts that a lot of other professional teams don't interact with for whatever reason. Like they're supporting these things. We feel safer over there. Let's interact with them more. And that's what you can control as a social team, as opposed to a PR team who has the tough task for stuff like this. And then I think also the responsibility is to go and be like, here's what the fans want. Here's what the fans are saying. I feel like you're always the voice of dissent in a meeting, because you're just like, this is what the fans are saying. Like, I don't think this, but FYI, this is how fans reacted to this, whether it's good or bad. And usually you're only saying it if it's bad, because everybody knows when it's good. So it does get kind of uncomfortable being the contrarian who's saying like, I don't know, this like might not go well. Like, I just know our fans pretty well. And people just thinking it's like, it's not me personally. I'm like, this is just what I think fans are going to say, or this is, I think, the potential backlash that I could see based on what other teams said. Or, you try to like extrapolate what you know from being on Twitter all the time, but you're not always right. And it also doesn't always matter, because they're going to say what they want to say, right? And you're going to press tweet on it and just hope for the best for the most part.
All right.
Were there any big regrets? Is there any, like, was there ever like a tweet that you fired off where you were like, I wish, like looking back on it, where you were like, I wish I could not do that?
Not a one. No, not a one. I always liked pushing the envelope a little bit, and I always only did it when I could defend it. So I don't have any regrets on that, because I think they were all spot on. I've thought about that a lot. Like, I'm like, oh, I wonder what we could have done differently. But I think it was all awesome. I stand by all of it. I think everyone loved it. Like, I don't see any reason to regret any of it.
There wasn't one that kept you up at night where you were like, oh, I wish I could have worded this differently, or I wish this might have changed, or whatever. Like something that just gnawed at you over time.
Oh yeah, no. If there was like a slight typo, like obviously there's usually not spelling typos. Sometimes like it just like it'll autocorrect or give you a weird comma or a weird spacing like that you don't really notice in the moment. That stuff kept me up at night all the time, but nothing like wording wise. But I would just like to say and be like, oh my! I would wake up at like 11 p.m. when it wasn't a game, obviously I was awake, but 1 a.m., 2 a.m. and like check out all the time, like log into Avs Facebook and like check all the things.
There's
and
no
like,
random comma, right?
Yeah, I'm like, I know they're all right. Like, what is my problem? But I couldn't sleep until I checked them all the time. Or I would wake up with nightmares of like, oh, it didn't say Tyson Jost, it said Tyson Most. Oh God, like Tyson Most, it's fine.
I've done that with headlines where I'm like, I get it in my head where I'm like, I definitely got the wrong word in this headline. And I go in and read it and I'm like, oh no, I did that right. Okay, we're cool.
Yeah, like,
but for whatever reason, I was convinced like I was totally incompetent.
Yeah, well, and also like having a team, like my coordinators would be like, yo, this like literally says Tyson Most, like you're dumb. And I'd be like, retweet it, thanks. Like, my bad. Like, you're like running down the hallway, like, I don't know what it says. Like, can you fix it? You do it. That was me.
All right. Well, I guess we're kind of wrapping up the show here. So, Emily, if you have anything you want to take the floor with, anything you want to say Avs related or not, want to plug something, feel free to go ahead.
For the record, there have been a ton of people in the comments on the show that have been giving you lots of love. I don't know if you see them.
Thanks.
Lots of love.
I don't actually haven't been looking, but no, I love Avs fans. I think it's fun. I surprisingly keep tweeting about hockey. Like I was like, I should stop tweeting about hockey. Like so annoying. And then I'm like, I can't stop. I love Avs fans. So it's fun to engage. I also think, I think Avs fans are special. I think the community is really fun. I mean, I'm biased because I grew up here, so I love the Avalanche, but I think the fans are really awesome. And I keep tweeting at them every day from my personal account.
All right.
It has been interesting to see the rise of that account where like your personal account was like,
where I have time to tweet, you mean? Like,
exactly.
A lot of time with COVID stuff, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like I think I'm funny, so I just tweet things. I need to amuse myself somehow.
Awesome.
How do I do it?
Anywhere people can find you, I guess you can plug your Twitter at the very least.
Oh my God, I'm a terrible follow on Twitter. If you're looking for hockey, don't follow for that. Maybe if you want to be amused about dating in Denver, like wine, maybe I'm funny. Emily_Wade. I have nothing to plug. You probably already follow me if you know who I am.
All right, well, I guess that's going to do it for the show then, unless AJ, you got anything final to hit on.
Honestly, it's just it's cool. I haven't seen you in like months, so it was nice to catch up and say hello and see that you're doing well. And whatever's next for you, I'm excited to see what that is.
Oh yeah, get excited. Working on it.
All right. Good to hear it. So I guess just thank you again, Emily, for coming on the show. Much appreciated. We're going to get out of here for the day. This one comes to you from Strava Craft Coffee, the CBD-infused coffee that you can now purchase in K-Cups for your Keurig. They also have whole bean or ground as well. And you can purchase online and get 20% off when you use code DNVR. The CBD is non-psychoactive and has been known to help many aches and pains, so give it a try today. Thank you, everyone, for listening. You know, AJ and I will be back tomorrow. Have some more exciting content. I think we have another guest coming on Friday. But for today, it was Emily Wade. Hope y'all learned something. Hope y'all had some fun. And we will catch y'all on the next one.